you're one of the ones that really are living in your own world. You don't accept any conventional wisdom. And I really like that. One of my favorite quotes that you say is, if you accept conventional wisdom from conventional people living conventional and average lives, you can't expect anything else but to be conventional. So that's one thing I really, really want to help people comprehend, because one of my goals for the Academy was to create real game changers, real entrepreneurs who solve real problems. And in order to rise above the noise, they not only have to master these principles, they cannot have any scripts. They cannot live by any of society's standards. So do you remember when you were kind of fed up, or when you realized there was a script that you were subconsciously following?
Well, it's pretty clear when you see the script is designed to keep you encumbered into mediocrity. You know, the whole world is talking about, you know, TV shows, and, you know, so-and-so is, they canceled that, you know, my favorite show. It's like, it's like I'm living amongst a world that is just totally like in a zombie apocalypse. I don't care that, you know, NBC or HBO canceled just some damn show. The other thing is financial. We're told that the way to wealth is to give all your money to Wall Street and then to wait 50 years. And, you know, if you're lucky, you know, you're alive after 50 years and you're a faithful investor and you live frugal, you know, don't enjoy yourself, God forbid. Be frugal, and by the time you're 65 years old, you'll be able to retire rich. And see, that's another scripted dogmatism where you're fully entrusted to give your money to Wall Street. And, you know, I didn't get to retire 30, 35 years early because I trusted Wall Street. Wall Street had nothing to do with it. And you'll find the most successful entrepreneurs will also give you the same feedback. They're living a rock style life, not because they gave money to an index 500. They gave money to their business. They grew it exponentially. They were perhaps, you know, they didn't spend all their money when they made it. So that's when you realize that the world is not tailored toward entrepreneurs. It's tailored for creating economic slaves in the work cycle, economic slaves in the job cycle, economic slaves in the Wall Street, give us your money for 50 years cycle. And again, my books are trying to get people out of that motif into a different alternative that exists, which is also difficult, but the other is also difficult as well. Getting up at 6 in the morning to a job you hate for 50 years and being frugal for 50 years, that's also difficult. So I don't want to make any, you know, claims here that anything is much easier, but the rewards are far different.
You might as well take the one that's difficult, that you actually like the rewards. You know what I mean? And I really, there's some people that are still in it, MJ. So I really want to talk about, simply put, the steps to kind of reject the script. Is it to get around people that have not taken that script in and created their own script? Is it to take the steps in your book? Is it to write certain things down? How was it for you? Is there anything else you can share if there's a little fear involved for people, and how to reject that script?
Well, the primary anchor to a script is the trading of your time, and where it's acceptable for you to trade your time 5 days a week, 50 for 50 years. And once you realize that you can make money not being linked to your time, and actually once you experience that, it's like a light bulb goes off for people. And you just cannot get rich. Or when I say get rich, what I'm really talking about is getting yourself free from, you know, these demands and whatnot. The way you do that, obviously, is you have to create something that exists separate from space-time, from yourself. And it has to be leverageable in terms of scale and the ability to replicate it among the masses. And it doesn't need to be among the masses insofar as, you know, millions and millions. It only needs to be thousands and thousands. Because once you experience, holy shit, I just got up and I made $600. You know, I've been sleeping most of the night. Once you realize that paradigm shift of no longer making money just because you traded your time, and you have it into a scalable enterprise, all of a sudden, you know, making $5,000 a day doesn't seem too outrageous. It actually happens all the time. So once you get acclimated to that kind of system where time is no longer an enemy, it's actually your ally. This idea of becoming a millionaire after a couple of years is really possible. It becomes probable, it doesn't become unlikely. So that is the essence of trying to create something that makes time your asset and not your liability, because right now it's a liability in all scripted things.
When you talked about scale, I want to share this because it was such a pivotal moment. There's local community, which is like a pool, right? Mm-hmm. There's the county, city, which is like a pond. There's statewide, which is a lagoon. There's regional, which is a lake. There's national, which is the sea. Then there's worldwide, which is the ocean. So you want something that's worldwide, because a lot of people are trying to scale, but they only have a pond. They're only reaching their city if they're brick and mortar. So that's something that I really, and obviously I talked about it earlier with you. There is no way we could even go through 10% of what I want to cover on this call. You just obviously have to read the books because they're so amazing. But that's important for scale, because I still see people thinking that they're scaling, but they're still limited. They don't have the ocean. They don't have the sea. They just have a lagoon or a pond.
Yeah. So when you talk about scale, a lot of that comes back to your product. Is your product, I'm not saying you have to have a mass market appeal, but you have to, if your product has a mass market appeal in a niche, but it's also worldwide, you know, that's a large market. So when people discuss, you know, I need to scale something, a lot of times I look at the product and I'm like, you know, that's maybe not really scalable because your market is so tight. It's almost like saying, well, how do I make my boat go faster? And I'm like, well, your boat has holes in it. How can I make it go faster? So the product, everything for me is always starting with the product, what I call a productocracy. And that's a product that where 1 + 1 = 3, meaning your product is so good, you have skewed value so much that people talk about your product, people recommend your product. That's where the 1 + 1 = 3. If you're not dealing with a productocracy, scale becomes much more difficult, if not impossible. So for the productocracy, that's our ultimate objective. If we're an entrepreneur that's either starting or we're starting to see a little bit of growth, we want to continually work toward that productocracy.